Hello, everyone, and welcome back to D&D&D&D&D. When we last left off, our party was adventuring through the mines of Bedair Mountain. Uh, they have found a set of railroad tracks and a small cabin mounted on a large pile of junk and scrap metal. Captain Red, Flower and Fall climbed/flied the mountain to investigate the cabin within, but Paul, afraid of getting his suit dirty, went off to investigate the rest of the train tracks. While in the cabin, our two of our party members encountered an unconscious goblin bound and panicking due to an overdose of what Flower and Fall were able to identify as a Fairfolken drug, spook, that induces fear in those who breathe it in. The door is slammed shut behind him, and somebody seems to be in the cabin with them. Meanwhile, as Paul went to investigate the train, he was blocked off when he stumbled across the train, which was a large train car with a drill attached to it, and is currently being attacked by an elemental of fire. Paul, you did hear the screams from the cabin, and you can see some strange orange gas leaking out of it. The rest of you, though, are a little occupied right now. It's going on with Paul. I'm going to go ahead and need everyone to roll initiative.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna spray stuff in my face.
+2.
Oh, that is a 19.
Nice.
Let's see if I get any pluses today.
That would be your dexterity.
That's a 19.
Total of
get +2?
15.
All right, so 21 for you, 19 for Flower and Fall.
15.
All right. Lucky you. You guys get to go before literally all of the enemies.
Yay.
All right, so it's going to go Captain Red, Flower Fall, Paul, and the various creatures opposing your progress. So, Captain Red, the bound goblin has succumbed to the effects of the spook, as it seems have you. You hear maniacal laughter echoing throughout the cabin, but you're kind of surrounded by this thick orange fog and can't really see around you very well. And your heart rate is rapidly increasing, and you're starting to sweat violently.
Well, the response like that, I think his little friend would probably override him and kick itself in.
All right, so you're going to use your action to transform?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Do you want to do anything else? I think transforming is a bonus action for you, so.
Is there anything I can see to hit?
Make a perception check.
That's a nat 20.
Nice. You peer through the kind of orange fog around you, and you notice two things stick out to you that you hadn't noticed walking in. You see a humanoid shape kind of slinking through the doorway past you, and it seems to be rifling through the various little cages in the wall that you had kind of just glanced over but not paid too much mind. But you glance over and see that this kind of inky, black, veiny substance is starting to overtake the goblin's head.
Oh. Gross.
Well, I am gonna, I guess, in a bout of irony here, we're gonna try to turn the fear tables on this motherfucker who's trying to gas us and use roar to try and frighten everyone. Is it only enemies, or would everyone be frightened by it?
If it doesn't specify enemies, then it's everyone.
It's in the proximity.
Level 2 will transform you. You can let out a roar with the help blah 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 to frighten nearby creatures as an action.
Yeah, so that would just apply to literally everyone.
Each creature of your choice within 60 feet.
Okay, so then you can.
And aware of you must succeed a wisdom saving throw.
Okay.
Or become frightened for 1 minute. A creature can repeat the.
What is it? Unaware of you.
At the end of each turn, ending the effect on itself. On success, if the creature saving throw is success, or the effect ends where the creature is immune to your frightful presence for the next 24 hours. So. What does that mean whenever they're frightened?
Their only action they can take is to run.
Yeah, they have to stay a certain distance from you.
So they have to make. So I guess that we're gonna try to get that figure we saw. He's gonna have to make a wisdom saving throw, Matthew.
Okay, I already rolled it, and it definitely doesn't exceed your DC. As you let out this, Paul, once the kind of screaming and laughter dies down, you hear the familiar roar of Sanguis, and there's a brief pause, and Sanguis, from your vision, the figure just kind of disappears rapidly into the fog, and your vision just kind of starts to go hazy. But Paul, you see the door kicked open promptly by a tall, muscular figure in a gas mask and trench coat, who's looking over his shoulder, seemingly in a panic, with long, bright blonde hair kind of coating his head.
Basically, this guy just jumped the wrong motherfucker.
He has what a strange kind of radio-esque device gripped in his arms, and is running, kind of half running, half sliding down the mountain of junk as fast as his legs will take him.
How's that for turning the tables on him?
Yeah.
I don't think he expected that when he was eating his Wheaties this morning.
All right. Flower and Fall. You just heard Sanguis let out the roar and heard the door get kicked open, but the goblin still has that inky substance on him.
Can I go investigate what's going on with the goblin?
Roll investigation.
I don't know if I'm a dumb bitch or not. Let me check. I'm a dumb bitch. That's a 6.
I think we all asked that question.
Sanguis, you look as Flower slowly approaches the goblin, and Flower, you immediately just jump back because you're already kind of on it. You both flinch back as a long, clawed, shadowy black arm reaches out of the goblin's mouth and grabs onto the ceiling on the top of the cabin, and you see a shadowy, inky figure start to basically birth itself out of the goblin's mouth.
What is going on?
That might be the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
As this creature pulls itself free...
I just remember what I was going to say. That is the most disturbing thing I have ever seen in my entire life. You know what that's from, right?
Yeah. And as this figure kind of births itself from the goblin's head, you see that it is a figure twice you guys' height, but like skin and bones. Its fingers and feet end in basically just knives, and it has bones sticking out in various uncomfortable places. And as its head, with this kind of horrible bone cracking sound, turns to look down at you, Flower, you see very familiar orange eyes glaring out from the creature's head.
Well, the goblin have orange eyes?
I hate that.
No, goblin eyes are typically yellow or red. Flower and Fall in character knows what I'm talking about. And
yes, this is very not okay.
Sanguis, as you behold the creature, you don't see the orange eyes. Instead, you see it's overtaken by a kind of webby blue and black pattern that starts to bring back horrible repressed memories, not from Captain Red, but from your little friend. And the spook starts to take its effect on Sanguis as well.
Interesting.
I
have no idea what that stuff what that webby stuff would be.
Yeah. Trust your DM. It's all according to plan. Paul, you're up. You heard the roar. You saw the guy flee, but you're now confronted by this elemental coated in flame and coal.
I'm guessing that the dude wasn't actually the boss. This is the boss.
Maybe. I talked to him.
Go for it. Talking's a free action after all.
Well, I'm gonna explain to him like why I'm here and all that. You know, I mean, I'd be like, well, I mean, I don't mean to intrude on your space. I'm just here looking for what seems to be a chest plate or some sort.
The figure stops and stares at you and says, "You're looking for the Wind Breastplate."
Ah, yes, that's it. Yes.
He kind of glares at you and says, we have been charged with the duty to protect it from interlopers like you."
Hmm. Hmm. Well. Wait. Interesting. I get what you're saying there, but I'm trying. But if you haven't noticed, things aren't going well here.
He kind of stares at you for a moment before looking up at the kind of scene up in the cabin, and kind of looks back at you, kind of confused, and says, "I assumed they were all with you."
Well, the one that just passed by is not with me, but but it seems as though that breastplate is causing some unpleasant side effects outside.
Make a persuasion check.
All right, second persuasion, but okay.
Well, I'll give you another shot. Basically, just because you're making a separate and decently convincing argument, but so it's not convincing enough to guarantee his support, but it's enough to at least have you roll for it.
9.
He kind of considers for a moment before shaking his head and saying, "Things here may not be as great as they once were, but the point is the denizens of the mines are safe, and they will be even safer once I rid the mine of you."
Hmm.
All right, you're going to have to probably make an action of some kind here.
Yeah.
If you don't want to attack him, you can take the dodge act.
Yes. I walk away.
Or where do you want to go?
Hmm. Well, I could see some unpleasant actions going on there. So let's do that. Uh I go back to the house.
The one at the top of the hill?
One that my two allies are at.
All right. Okay. Go ahead and make me an athletics or acrobatics check, your choice, to get up the hill.
My only concern is he's a fire elemental, and the thing's all cold. And let's see, both +2. It'll be a 10.
You basically break out into a run and start like just trying to book it up the pile, but unfortunately are not able to make it up and slide back down.
Yep, slide down the coal while he's a fire. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking here.
All right. That leaves the enemies up to take their turn. Obviously, friggin' Gas Mask McFuckface is just gonna keep running. So, although he does get another chance to make that throw. So let's see. Nope, still not gonna cut it. So he's gonna just keep booking it.
Ain't it like only a certain distance, right?
Uh,
Right.
I'm pretty sure no, it's a certain distance to like to frighten them, but once they are frightened, until they undo it, they just can't move directly towards. So they technically could still fight, they just don't want to move towards the source of the thing that frightened them. But this guy doesn't seem overly interested in fighting any of you, he's just booking it. And Paul, as you slide back down the rubble pile, you see him disappear into the train tunnel across the river and out of sight. As for you, the elemental starts to step forward.
That's another element. Oh, you mean the fire elemental?
The other one.
Fortunately, though, your run actually did get you away from him, so he's forced to just kind of start breaking out into. And he's kind of a pudgy elemental, so he just kind of happened to like waddle towards you. That's not that bad. To friggin' get to you. He manages to get kind of like just across the way from you before having to like stop and catch his breath.
Also, the armor class is unchanged because it's dexterity plus charisma plus 10. So it's 3 plus 10, 13. So he has the same armor class.
Okay. All right. So with that done, the creature that has emerged from the goblin's face hole cracks its neck and starts to look down at you, Flower, and reaches its claws back to bring them down upon your face.
Yeah. How about you don't do that?
I don't even need to ask your AC. You rapidly fly back into the doorway. Captain Red or Sanguis kind of scooching back to make room for you as splinters fly into the air from the creature slamming down where you were floating just a moment ago. It kind of picks itself up and kind of makes it, since it's like just birthed from the goblin's mouth, and you just hear this horrible bone cracking as it like stands to its full intimidating height, that like its head almost scraping the roof of the cabin, and it glares at all of you before stepping forward, ready for a fight. Sanguis, you're up. The creature is directly in front of you in the doorway.
All right. So we're going to make one of our unarmed attack rolls.
Go for it.
So do I need to roll the hit still?
Yes. You always need to roll a hit unless stated otherwise.
We're going to say it's slashing damage.
Okay.
That is a nat 20.
Yeah, that is going to hit.
I'll roll a d6.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just have to ask. I mean, it's probably a bit late to do it now, but would he be able to enlarge in this space? Because that means he gets.
Yeah. If it's big enough to support this thing, it's big enough. Flower and Fall just kind of have to scooch back a bit, but they were already kind of.
I do that next time, or can we consider him enlarged now?
I think it just enlarges you automatically, so I'll just say because Flower.
So he gets an extra.
Yeah. Unless it's. Yeah, unless it specifically says that you need to enlarge, then it probably just does it automatically. So.
Currently looking for my D.
Well, while you're doing that, yeah, because Flower and Fall are tiny, so they could like maneuver in your space anyway, regardless of if it was like a tight fit or not. If it was Paul in there, that'd be kind of difficult because he couldn't really wiggle past you, which would be awkward. So that actually kind of worked out for you.
Do something stupid, yeah.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So a D6 and a D4, and then it doubles. Because of the crit.
Yes.
That's 5. So that'll be 12 damage.
Okay. So Sanguis, you reel back and plunge your claws into its chest, and it reels back and lets out this guttural, bone-chilling scream as you pull your claws back out of its chest cavity.
Slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning?
Yeah, you can just pick. You said slashing,
does
so.
The monster do that?
Well, it hasn't attacked anyone yet, so you don't know.
But it has claws, right?
Yeah, so you can probably safely assume. Although claws can sometimes be pure.
Half damage against
well, yeah, it depends on. Yeah, it depends. Like it looks like the other type was like a bullet force attack. Oh, I don't remember.
Anyways, so
we'll see.
All right, got that noted. Flower and Fall, you're up. You're behind Sanguis, who's just meleeing the creature essentially. Because you're tiny, you can still kind of get into a decent position to see and attack it if you want. But yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I will use my axe.
So you're just gonna like squeeze past Sanguis and just choppy it.
Chop, chop.
Yes.
All right, go for it.
Fight. Bloodlust.
Yeah, go for it. Go wild.
20. Perish.
Man. All right. Roll for it.
Okay, I need to see what the attack.
I believe for Flower it is a D10 on melee.
Wow, that's
And I need to figure out which one's the D10 because I'm always confused.
well, it's I don't know how to describe it.
The D10 or D12? This is D10. Okay, finally.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all good. All friends here.
8. Plus, it has a plus, wait.
Yeah.
That'd be 9 then.
All right. Wow. Perfect. Sanguis, as you pull your claws out of its chest and it starts to pick itself back up, you feel tiny little footprints go down your head and kind of leap off of your forehead. And Flower just pile drives her axe into the creature's head, and it reels back its gaping maw, almost consuming Flower, but she just grips the handle of her axe to keep herself out of its mouth. And it finally dissipates into dust. And you guys' vision starts to kind of clear a bit from the spook. And you see no sign of the fight that had just occurred, only an unconscious goblin.
What a joke.
Alright.
He's just like, that thing was a joke.
Paul, you're up. Unless, real quick, does Fall want to do anything?
I can't find it in his notes. What were the things that he's vulnerable to in this?
Fire and thunder.
Oh, good.
The fire elemental.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Does that mean I take double damage?
Yeah, you take double damage regardless of if they crit or not.
Well, I guess if they crit, would that be quadruple?
Quad, if it's...
It depends on the DM. I personally like to say that it's quad damage.
That's not good.
So Paul, you're up. He is starting to close in on you now. If you don't get out of his way, he's going to be up on you on the next turn.
All right. Here goes something.
If you melee attack a fire elemental, do you take fire damage?
It depends on the elemental.
Yeah, like, well, I know there's an armor or like a magic spell you can have that can do something like that.
Armor of Agathist, it does cold damage.
But no, there's one that does like you can switch between them or choose. A warlock could do it.
Yeah. Anyway, so what you gonna do?
So we're gonna use the bucket again.
Oh my god! If you fucking beat this campaign with that bucket, like you get inspiration for life.
Is he going to splash it with
For
water?
life.
So,
all right, yeah, what are you gonna do?
Does it have anything in it?
No.
I don't believe so. Yeah.
It's going to have something in it. I'm going to fill the bucket with the coal substance.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just say that's your whole business. I can't really think of a thing to make you roll for that. What do you want to do with it?
All right. Seems to work on the whale, so I'm gonna do it on him. I'm gonna splash the coal on him.
Do you want this to damage him, or are you just trying to like feed him, essentially?
I mean, I'm just whatever happens, I splash coal on him. What happens?
He is very confused.
Make me another persuasion check.
All right.
I'm giving you points for creativity on this one.
Persuasion. Only if I was good at persuasion. I got a nat 20.
Okay. All three of
We're
you in
just
the
not
first
having it.
fight. Man, all of your luck just saved up from the missed sessions and came out all at once. Jesus.
Breaking in.
I think all three of us have rolled nat 20s.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
all did.
Wait, that was like 3 in a row, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yes.
Possibly.
That's a freaking turkey right there.
Paul, you dunk pit coal at this creature's feet, and it all just kind of gets absorbed into his body, making him a little bit bigger than he was earlier. And he just stops dead in his tracks and just kind of stares at you.
He's just genuinely confused.
Yeah, he seems very confused before he finally shakes his head and says, "Okay, I'm torn between two options. You either really don't understand what a fire elemental is, or this is your desperate attempt to convince me without words that you're actually not here to cause trouble in the mine."
I like the one where you leave me alone.
He kind of crosses his arms and just, and as he does that sound, like smoke and embers spill out of his mouth. And he looks up as Red, Flower and Fall emerge from the cabin, coughing up some orange smoke, and says, "So what are you here for exactly? I mean, besides the treasure that I'm not technically supposed to help you get."
I mean, honestly, that's the main reason we're here to try to. I've been told by a friend to try to help this place, help the island, get the plate, and stop the disaster.
He kind of puts a coal and fire finger to his chin in thought. Red, Flower and Fall, you guys kind of slide down the rubble to meet up with Paul.
Someone just freaking reels at the sight of living fire. Like just it's like proceeding.
Kill it. Kill it with fire.
The creature doesn't pay the new arrivals too much mind, surprisingly, and eventually says, "Well, I will admit the weather has been disagreeable with a creature such as myself, so." He thinks for a moment before clapping his hands together, kind of all of you kind of startling because it creates this like shower of sparks before he says, "Very well, I have made an executive decision as the conductor of the Underdark Express. I shall take all of you to the nearest station where you can hopefully make the trip to retrieve the Wind Breastplate, if that's agreeable with all of you."
Sounds agreeable to me.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna go ahead and transform back now. The fighting seems to be over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You don't have to be afraid of
That's
fire.
his only transformation for this long rest, so.
As you change back and everyone's kind of settles down, he kind of looks down the tunnel where the gas masked figure had disappeared and says, "Do you want to go retrieve your unusual fellow from the tunnels, or?"
He's no friend of ours.
I've never met him.
He shrugs. Says,
Oh, the goblin's still there, right? By the way.
Yeah, he's unconscious in the cabin.
Can I like grab him and drag him over?
Yeah, I think with the two of you, given that he's a small creature and you're two tiny ones, I'll say that you could probably carry him. So Flower and Fall, you
tiny equal one small.
So you two fly back up and retrieve the still unconscious goblin and undo his bonds and carry him down the rubble pile without scratching his unconscious body on any of the pointy bits. And the creature of fire nods and says, "Well, if this is all the passengers, then all aboard." He claps his hands together and gestures for you to follow as he walks into the room that you had previously entered, Paul, that contains the Underdark Express.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that he is the conductor and that he just sits in the coal pile igniting the coal.
That very well may be the case, in fact.
He is in fact the fire that runs the engine.
As you guys follow behind him with Goblin in tow, He says, "Oh, and if any of you need anything on the trip, my name is Bruce."
Mm. Well, hello, Bruce.
Hello to you as well. Who are all of you?
Well, I am Paul.
I'm Flower, and this is Fall.
And I'm Captain Red.
He kind of pauses and nods, kind of closing his eyes as if committing it all to memory, before nodding again, saying, "Very well, I shall get the three of you to mainland Levant post-haste. Is the city of Farai an agreeable destination? It's relatively close to the Serpent's Temple, where you can find the Wind Breastplate. Be wary, though, the weather on the way there is no more agreeable than it was getting here."
Hmm.
That's
Well,
fine.
I see.
it'll get us closer than a little wetness couldn't hurt. Well, won't hurt me, but if it's a problem for you, then I understand.
He smiles and says, "Well, I'm afraid I'm duty bound to the Underdark Express, so even if I had the ability to help your quest, this is all I can do. But if you ever find some railway tracks," and he winks, "you know how to call me." And he disappears into a puff of smoke. The fire at that torch you had seen Paul reigniting behind you as you enter the room, and the trail of smoke disappears into the main drill. And there's a brief pause before you hear this like train steam sound, and the door to one of the passenger cars cranks open, and as the lights come on from the torches reigniting, Flowerfall and Captain Red, you guys for the first time behold the train properly. It is a large, essentially, picture a tank if a drill was mounted on the front instead of a gun, and just behind it are train cars being pulled behind.
Mm.
So it's on treads.
Yeah. Well, sort of a weird hybrid of treads but also hooked up to tracks. It seems like it was kind of a repurposed device, just looking it over. And there's a passenger car open for all of you.
Yeah. Go inside.
Can
All right.
I place the goblin down on like one of the
Yeah.
seats?
Yeah, of course. There's plenty of seats. It seems like this train could easily fit like a comfortable amount of people. So
Well, actually,
What?
I'll take my my tiny bedroll and unshrink it, and then put it in there.
okay.
Put the goblin in there. There
So
you go.
you kind of pupate him in your sleeping bag and rest him on one of the train seats, and all of you make yourselves comfortable in a series of seats, and once you guys are settled in, the door hisses closed, and you hear the engine in the front start to crank to life, and a small sort of gramophone-esque horn in the top right corner of the train car kind of slowly crackles to life and says, "All right, passengers, welcome to the Underdark Express. We will be in the city of Farai by tomorrow morning. I suggest all of you get some rest and prepare for the journey ahead. May our journey be a
Yay.
peaceful
Long
one."
rest.
And you hear some nice kind of elevator music start to tinge through the train car as it hisses to life and starts chugging. And you guys all look out the window as the lights of Berer Mine start to
What a
be
view.
replaced
Rocks,
by
rocks and more fucking
yeah
rocks.
start to be replaced by just the darkness of the tunnel as the train travels, and eventually all that's left, all you're left with, is the music and the kind of ambient hum of the train.
Hmm.
Long rest. Long
Yeah,
rest.
yeah, yes, you guys can long rest. I'm just giving you guys a chance for any dialogue.
Well, I mean, I guess I can look over the new fella that they seem to have found.
Okay, make a medicine check.
Also, is there anything to lay on in here?
You guys, I believe, should all come pre-equipped with bedrolls, but the train seats are all more than able to fit you if you just want to lie down.
Okay.
Weird.
I guess you could use the bedroll in conjunction with the seat, so we're just not laying on fucking floor.
Hmm.
Um.
So wouldn't be wrong for us to just wander out.
Well, to be fair, I wouldn't exactly recommend friggin' jumping between train cars when the train is moving, especially given that you have to, but you could if you wanted to.
They have what?
They were asking if friggin' it'd be an option
I don't know
essentially to
what they
just.
were asking, but you said like to be moving around on a moving train.
No, like
something.
jumping between train cars.
Yeah, you said jumping between train cars, especially when you use something.
Oh, especially when you don't have a need to.
Need to?
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
Sure there.
I
Cutting
guess.
out on my end.
All right. So how was your medicine check, Paul?
With proficiency +5, I believe that'd be 23. Yeah.
All right. So you guys just kind of idly watch as Paul kind of gives the goblin a once over. He seems actually fine. It seems like he was just crazy overdosed on spook. But now that he's
Good thing it's not lethal.
yeah, for him, he seems okay though. Once it kind of gets out of his system, he'll be perfectly fine. The only real injuries outside of what is a very minor, it seems like it's more than healed at this point, bludgeoning injury on his head, which seems to have just knocked him out some time ago. Other than that, the only real notable injuries on him are a few marks from a syringe in his neck. But other than that, perfectly healthy as a goblin can be. In fact, he actually seems very physically fit for a goblin.
Interesting. Well, I mean, guess I just let him get some rest while we all probably do the same.
Okay. So, you all lie down. Any last minute conversation, or are you guys just gonna long rest?
Red's probably just worn out.
Yeah.
You know, he only made one attack.
Yeah. Oh, it was a pretty good one, to be fair. And you had been walking around in a ambiently creepy mine for hours, so.
I mean, and also we had that ship battle. We didn't rest.
Yeah. So it's been a long day for you, all things considered. So, Flower and Fall and Paul, anything, or are you guys just good to?
I mean, I'm good. I checked up on my patient, or Flower and Fall's patient.
Friend.
Yeah.
Just so he looks okay, right?
Yeah, just needs some rest. Just what seems to be some type of toxin or I'm not sure, but once it gets out of his system, he should be all okay.
That's now I can sleep softly.
And they just kind of nestle into one of the train seats and just kind of lean against each other.
God, that train seat must be like a freaking, like, hell of a place for him.
It's mattress world.
Yeah.
All right, the three of you, with guest in tow, all slowly let rest claim you. The gentle
I get to
bumps.
heal 1 health because that's the only damage I took.
To be fair, Paul was on crazy low health, so that's part of the reason I put a long rest here.
Well, actually, I don't think I was on low health. I think I was on temporary health.
Yeah, so the bumps and hums of the train eventually lull you to sleep. And once you guys wake up, you don't seem to be quite at your station yet. But as you guys kind of shake yourselves awake and stretch out, ready to start a new day, you see that your guest appears to be awake. He's still just kind of curled up in the sleeping bag and just kind of staring out of the window into the darkness of the underdark tunnels. Doesn't seem to have, if he's noticed you guys wake up, he hadn't seemed to have paid you any mind yet.
Oi, mate, you good?
He kind of like twitches violently when you say that, and his head bumps the friggin' window. But if a human did that, you get the impression that they'd be like, ah! But you actually see like a very, very tiny crack in the glass from where his head hit it. And he looks around in a panic before seeing you, and shakes his head before glaring at you, and says, "Son, I got a buffalo's worth of spook running through my veins, and you scream when I'm not looking at you."
I'm too worried about it.
He scoffs and looks over at Flower and Fall and Paul, and specifically at you.
So I was not expecting that accent from a fucking goblin.
He looks at you, Flower and Fall, and then glances back at you, Red, and says, he kind of squints as if trying to remember something before nodding and saying, "Yeah, I remember you. You ran into the cabin while I was being dosed by that freak in the mask, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
You guys catch him?
No.
he just kind of ran away.
He spits on the floor of the train car, and you hear his voice kind of come over the gramophone and says, "Please do not spit on Underdark Express property. Thank you." And he just kind of glares at the gramophone before shaking his head and saying, "That's not enough. We couldn't keep him in his damn cell, and you guys couldn't even keep him out of this damn mortal coil." And he kind of shakes himself out of the sleeping bag and dusts himself off before just kind of pacing the train car, seeming more just like to give himself something to do. He seems like really not the type to stand still for very long before shaking his head and approaching you, Flower and Fall, and holds out 2 clawed fingers for a quote-unquote handshake. Says,
Finger shake.
"Yeah, well, I guess if nothing else, thanks for the rescue. Name's Pan Twice."
So you
I'm
seem
Flower
kind
and
of,
this is Fall.
you seem kind of a jailer or something. You said you or we had him locked up.
He nods and says, "I was the warden of these here mines. Well, everyone cleared out like a bunch of pansies. Turns out that freak had been dosing everyone with spooks since he got here, and everyone cleared out once the rain started. Said something about it leaking to the generators and blowing the whole place to Kingdom Come." But,
Well,
but I reckon if they'd been in their right minds, they would have realized 200-foot drop to the bottom of the ravine. There's no way the rain would fill all that before we could evacuate. But hey, and he taps the top of his head, spook does things to your mind, man.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm still not
Flashback.
100% sure that monster. That 100%.
He smiles and says, "You may never know." He turns to you, Paul, and
I
says,
didn't know that it was a fucking joke.
he turns to you, Paul, and says, "What about you? What's your story?"
I think well, I mean, I don't know about these guys. I'm just trying to get that apparently breastplate that that somehow has been got here.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That breastplate of the
The
snake
reason
guy.
we're here.
Breastplate of the snake guy with the wings.
He nods and says, "Quetzalcoatl's Wind Breastplate. Yeah, we've been babysitting it for, it's been close to a month now, I think. I don't know, time started to kind of get weird for me in that cabin."
I'd imagine. You had enough spook in you to put down and what's a very large head?
Oh, you can just say whatever, don't worry about it.
There was enough spook in you, so probably put down Behemoth.
There you
go. He kind of puts his fists to his hips and poses, kind of showing off his, frankly, for a goblin, ripped physique. And says, "Well, he's going to need enough to bring down Behemoth and Leviathan to keep me down."
Just clap.
He kind of smiles to you with his, very goblin-y, crooked teeth, before looking around at the train, says, "So, you guys convinced Bruce to give you a ride, huh?"
Yep.
He did, pointing to Paul.
I wave.
He nods to you with a grin and says, "That's pretty impressive. He's not exactly as much as his fiery personality would have you convinced otherwise. He doesn't give strangers a warm reception."
Ha!
Well, we had a nice chat. Some stuff happened, but in the end, we worked it out.
And how much of the stuff getting worked out involved you getting burnt to a crisp?
Well, I mean, actually, none of us had any fighting going on.
He kind of looks over all of you and just, huh. Well, I'll give you this. I'm impressed. Just giving you all the once over, I didn't think not fighting something was in your dictionary.
I mean,
Let's just say me and get along.
Yeah, I don't know about Red, but I'm pretty sure Flower and Vol are okay. But I definitely will. I'm more towards if I can avoid fighting, then I will.
Well, I respect that. So where are we going anyway? And he kind of takes a seat on the frontmost train car, or train seat.
Well,
Some city I can't remember the name of.
Yes.
The gramophone kicks in and says, all ready to off at the city of Fry."
Yeah.
The city of Fry.
He kind of glares at you, Red, and says, "Fry, I would hope that a man of your stature would show the financial capital of Levant some respect."
Look, I ain't been here in years, and that wasn't a very long stay the first time.
He kind of looks you over and just says, "Can't imagine why." And he kind of hops off the train seat as you guys look out the window.
Yeah,
And
it was an adventure. I'm sure they'll. Fond memories, but they will remember.
And speaking of which, as the train starts to kind of hiss to a stop, you guys' view out the window finally changes from the just empty darkness and rock walls, and you see, well, more tunnel, unfortunately, but what immediately catches your eye is that the train seems to have rolled into what looks like a very densely populated village that's just kind of nestled inside this tunnel. Immediately giving it a look over, obviously without perception checks or anything, you guys can immediately tell that this is kind of a menagerie of various creatures. And you notice a lot of them aren't looking so good, and already you can hear thunder and pouring rain from outside the tunnel. It seems like people have just kind of started using this tunnel as a place to hide out until the weather smooths over. And as the door opens, the gramophone pipes up and says, "Welcome to Fear and Ice Tunnel. If you ever need the services of the Underdark Express again, find the train tracks and ask for Bruce."
Sure will.
Good word for.
Pan twice turns to all of you and gives you guys a respectful nod each, and says, "Well, thanks for the save, fellas. You can ask around if you need anything from me." And with that, he hops off the train and wanders into the village, seeming like he's just going to make himself comfortable. And as you guys step out, at least initially, nobody pays you guys too much mind. It's very crowded, and you just can't really get a sign of any organization just looking over it. Like I said, it seems like this place is just being used as a hideout. And as you guys step off, the train car closes behind you, and you hear the Underdark Express whistle to life as the train proceeds to continue down the tracks and disappears into the tunnel.
Well, I guess you might as well roll perception and have a look around.
Okay, go for it.
So I'll probably go red say, well, might as well get a good look around. Motherfucker. Okay, let me see what my plus is.
Flowerfall still with us?
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Perception, so I got 15 total.
I'll wait for Quad to be good to continue, and then we'll pick up from there.
R.I.P.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Sorry.
Guessing just something interrupted you.
Things were just messing up.
Yeah. Can you hear? Did you hear everything? Do I need to repeat anything?
Yes, I heard everything. Don't worry.
Okay. You good to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So the train leaves, and Captain Red, you kind of lead the little posse as you have a look around. So looking over the tunnel, you do actually start to see a pattern. You notice that the people who are distributing things are all Saurians.
Lizard folk, right?
Yes. Furian, as you guys wander, and so yeah, you start to notice that it seems like the Saurians actually run this place, but they're treating everyone with respect. Everyone seems to be getting a good share of resources. You don't see an empty mouth that hasn't been filled. You don't notice any real trends among the Jesus Christ. You don't notice any trends among the Saurians, although you do notice that there seems to be a large number of specifically iguana and chameleon Saurians, but that's the only real trend you notice. They're multicolored and seeming pretty multicultural. Doesn't seem to be any exclusionary practice here. And eventually, one approaches you. You, not knowing Saurians super well, can't immediately discern too much about them. Other than that, they are a small, kind of pudgy green, bright green Saurian with a yellow crest that's slicked back, wearing a red dress. And they bow to you and says, "Oh, I think you're new here. Is there anything I can help you with?"
Hmm.
I mean, there's a couple of things I can ask exactly pertinent to the situation. Looking at the rest of the party.
Yes. But I guess. Well, we are looking for a very certain item that I would hope y'all know.
As you're kind of beating around the bush, she just immediately put up a hand and says, "I'm gonna guess the Wind Breastplate."
Yeah.
She kind of chuckles and says, "Yeah, we're not exactly known for our magic items. That's more of Berere's thing. Well, the mountain isn't that far from here. It's just down the path, but I'll warn you, the weather's not exactly hospitable."
Don't worry, it's fine.
I mean, we're
Fine.
used to it at this point. The weather's not been hospitable pretty much most places.
Exactly.
The problem is because of the breastplate. You have to get it.
She smiles and says, well, if there's anything we can do for you while you're here, my name is Anna T, and the Kara T tribe is happy to help you with anything you may need."
Hmm.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
She smiles and kind of politely bows out of your way as you guys continue. So you now know where you are. You guys can stop here to look for supplies, or if you want, you can just get moving and continue on your adventure.
I mean,
Let me check my ration.
I don't even have rations recorded. Are we supposed to be using rations?
Normally, yes. But you've only actually needed them for the previous long rest, and you usually start with 10 by default. So each of you should be down to 9 after your night in the train car and have 2 days.
Rations in total,
Yes, and
9 rations and 9
and
water.
yeah, and 2 days of water left in your weapons.
Well, we should at least get more water, just in case.
I mean, the weather it is, I don't think water's a problem.
Yeah, you do. To be fair, you probably could just hold out your water
Well, I
skin
don't
and
want to
refill.
drink the rainwater,
Oh, yeah.
okay?
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, you guys haven't gotten too far from Anna yet. You can go ask her. Go ask her if you can get some water.
Red would probably be interested in some of that good old
True.
fire water.
I don't think we need it.
Okay. So in that case,
Didn't Red take a bottle of something with him?
I believe, yeah, you took a kind of half full bottle of Red Drake off of the ship, but that's only going to last you a day. So you can start drinking it now, and it'll probably be empty by nightfall, or save it.
Red's just gonna pull it out and be like, "Well, I think I've deserved this." Just pops the cork off and starts drinking it.
All right, in Flower and Fall, you approach Anna, and she turns to you. Oh, is there something I can help you with?
Is there an inn or something that we can get water from?
She smiles and says, not quite an inn, but there's a river just down that way. And she points just to the east of what looks to be the exit tunnel of this little clearing. And indeed, looking over all the kind of huts and stuff stacked up to form shelters, you can see a flowing river.
Yep. So, just
Well,
Are we still underground or are we on the
Thank
surface?
you.
You're underground. You haven't surfaced yet. All right. So Flower and Fall, you want to refill at the river?
yeah.
All right. Doesn't take any checks or anything, so just want to check. All right. So you top off your water skin before rejoining the party. Now, are you guys good? Ready to continue?
I'm good.
Sure, let's go.
Love the enthusiasm. All right.
Gotta get that breastplate.
Let's
I mean,
go,
considering the weather ahead of us, it's not going to be a very fun ride.
All right. But first things first, you got to get out of the tunnel. So.
Rocks fall apart.
yeah. After all that, I just kill you here. No.
You step on a loose rock, it causes the collapse.
Everyone dies.
As you guys start,
I'm tired of our good rolls. Besides, we must die.
as you guys start to head out, Anna kind of calls to you as you leave the boundaries of the little camp, and says, "If you just keep following the tunnel, it should only take you about a day to get to Farai."
Thank you.
Dang, I thought that train got us there. What the fuck?
Well, it probably would have taken longer. And not only that, we were able to get a well, jolly rest.
Yeah, to be fair, it took him a day to drive you there by train. So imagine if you had to get there by boat and then walk the rest of the way. Remember, this is the closest train station there was to where you're trying to go. So,
I think there'd be a train station, the capital of the area.
Well, this is the capital of the area.
Yeah.
But he said we're a day away from it.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Like...
He took you at because this is the Underdark Express. So he took you as close as the train could get you to the capital, but you still gotta get the rest of the way there with feet. All right. So, luckily though, this cave seems pretty well traveled, especially with a Saurian camp and a presumably human city, like within a day's distance of each other. Doesn't seem like too much is going to bother you here, so it's mostly just a lot of walking. You guys can make any conversation you want, or do any checks you like to do, whatever you like.
Can I make a nature check?
What you looking for?
Animals.
Go for it.
Like animals.
But I'm terrible with nature, so we'll see.
Interesting.
Well, it could be just fun for some flavor, if
An
nothing.
11.
All right. As you guys kind of walk, like I said, nothing too dangerous or upsetting bothers you. as you guys kind of go through a fairly low kind of tunnel, and your heads kind of have to duck and then come back up, you guys get a brief spook as a seemingly very young, just learned to fly baby Ahul, which is basically just a bat, flies in front of all of you, seeming just as scared by your presence as you were of it, before flying past you into the tunnel you had just emerged from and disappearing into the darkness. And as you guys kind of continue on from there, you get another scare as these large pupa-like creatures dangle from the cave ceiling and
oh my god, it's the fucking barnacles from Half-Life.
Flower, your head kind of bumps one and you immediately start kind of panicking and looking around, but then you look up and see that it was just some hanging cocoons.
Oh. Wait.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the adults of them in those eyes.
I think Red didn't try to do anything medicine. He has a -1 on medicine.
Boy, I'm the doctor.
Yeah. All right. Other than that,
And he
it's a
has -1 on insight.
All right. So, other than that, it's a fairly uneventful trip. Anyone else want to have some dialogue or do?
Let's see here.
Well, I guess we'll just look around idly.
Make a perception check. Do you have dark vision?
Yes.
Okay, so God, just need to know if you would be making that with disadvantage or not.
17.
Okay. Real quick, does anyone else want to do anything just so my flavor text doesn't override anyone else's decisions?
Okay, I guess I'll have a look around as we're walking too.
Sure. Paul, anything?
No, I'm just gonna. My goal is
That'll
that
be
the plate.
18 in total because he gets +1.
Okay. So, you guys do a lot of walking before deciding to set up camp before you get to the city, since they said it would be a day's trip. And as you guys settle down and set up your little campfire in just a kind of large clearing in the cave, kind of a big cavern, so that you don't choke yourselves out in the night, and start setting up your bedrolls. Paul, you just kind of immediately settle down for a restless rest. Obviously very determined to keep going, but you know that you can't just drive the party on because you won't be in any state to actually get the thing when you get there. So you just kind of restlessly sit and toss and turn, trying to rest enough to close your eyes and sleep. But Red and Flower and Fall, as you
Just
settle
to
in.
take a look around before.
Oh yeah, that's what I was leading into. As you guys are settling in for your rest, you start to hear some kind of scuffling sounds in the distance. And Flower and Fall, you get the first glimpse of it with your dark vision. You see very small humanoid figures kind of crouching in the darkness and kind of scuttling on the walls around you like roaches. And Red, you look up to the ceiling and see one of these figures turn its head towards you. And the reason you can see this, even though you don't have dark vision, is because you notice its eyes are glowing this bright, like baby blue color, and you see a grin of large teeth like nothing you've ever seen on a creature before that wasn't sanguis.
Oh, good. We
What's
just
that?
picked a hellhole, didn't we?
Flower and Fall, you said, what's that? Do you want to try and identify it?
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
Would it be wisdom or intelligence?
This would be you don't know what this is, so this would be a nature check again.
Oh.
Okay.
I thought it'd be like some kind of maybe history check to see if it it.
History would be like identifying if there was anything like it, but nature is specifically to identify things. So, and what'd you get?
I'm not one.
You actually.
Can I make an attempt?
Yeah, go for it.
Because he's just 17 straight up.
Okay, so you two come to very different conclusions. Flower and Fall, you actually do know what these creatures are. They're these very friendly I mean, it's a very ironic word to use given your species, but almost like fairy-like creatures. They're like tooth fairies essentially. They visit good little children in the night and leave them candy and presents.
It's okay, guys. They're nice.
Red, on the other hand, you realize why those eyes and smile remind you so much of Sanguis. You guys, Paul, this is what gets your attention on these things other than the talking. You hear this kind of sound of like something wet hitting rock, and the creature on the ceiling starts to slowly climb towards you, dangling by a thread of this ichor-like webbing. And Sanguis creeps into the recesses of your mind, Captain Red, and tells you what this thing is. It's something like him.
Oh, we picked worse than So,
and you guys,
I think you might have made a slight error on that identification. Just hold.
What do you mean?
You said some of it dripped down.
no, you heard the sound. It basically is itself on a strand of like ink webbing, but it is slowly like threading its way towards you from the ceiling.
He just gonna point to the threading it's hanging off of. You remember my little friend, right? Yeah, they're like him. They're not as well fed, but they've seen him before, haven't they?
Yes.
I don't remember.
Are you sure?
Oh, that
What
thing.
is it hanging from?
I guess.
I guess.
I don't know anything about them. They probably already know about my friend. Well, any number of things could happen at this point. They could just be hungry, or they may decide they want to take a shot at the big guy who just walked in.
And as Red's kind of explaining this to an enraptured Flower and Fall, and Paul, you're kind of pulling yourself out of your bedroll, that scuffling that was happening around you comes to a stop, and you hear the sounds of weapons being unsheathed. And Austin, I believe you said you want to be done around 2ish tonight, so we'll call the session there. Started with a fight and we'll end with a fight.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Well, I guess we'll get to this
I'll
fight
use my bucket.
Cliffhanger.
All right, so thank all of you in the audience so much for watching. Thank all of you so much for playing. We'll pick this up next week. A lot of interesting stuff happening.
Yeah.
All right, see you guys next week. Bye-bye!